right. Well, with me for round two is Joe Connolly, head coach of football sports performance at the Arizona State University Sun Devils. Joe, welcome back.
Thanks, Scott. No, I appreciate you having me, and it's always good to talk to you and talk shop.
Yeah. I always enjoyed the conversation last time, and it's been fun. It's been like a year, I think, close to it since you were last on. So a lot's changed. You've had one major life event. You're a dad.
That is right. Yeah, it's we had our daughter Callie 3 months ago. She was born on the 20th, so 3 months and 2 days.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're still kind of wading through the deep water, so to speak, in regards to how to do it. How to be parents, and what it all looks like, and what's the best bottle, and what's the best formula and method for this and method for that. And but it's been a lot of fun. It's been hard. It's been really hard, but it's been a lot of fun too. My wife, Shalana, she's a beast. She's doing awesome. And, with the timing of it, was hard for us because, we're in the middle of the season. She was born in August, and I was in the middle of camp, and we kind of jumped right into the season. And so I feel terrible. I'm a little bit of an absentee dad, unfortunately, right now. But when I get home, I try to help out as best I can. And we've had a lot of visitors, which is good. So that helped. But yeah, we're super excited. Super excited.
That's awesome. Girl dad, I can appreciate that. I've got three of my own, so a little bit older than 3 months. But yeah, that is definitely the adjustments was kind of a big thing, especially for us with having a few kind of back to back within a short period. But they're at every age is a fun age, but 3 months they start to kind of wake up and become people a little bit outside of that, just slumbering all the time.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch her. She's learning to grab things, and she sees you, and she recognizes your voice now when you come in, and it happens so fast. But yeah, it's been really cool to watch and see that just development. It's amazing.
So has that impacted anything for you guys, with sleep or anything like that? How's that been?
Yeah.
As you laugh.
I think it's been super challenging. I think the first month, we were really struggling. We were sleep deprived, and I typically get up 3:30, 3:45 on a normal day. And, I'm in the office by like 4:30, 4:45 most days. And, I get home at 5:00 normally. We had actually a really good schedule where we have practice and everything, and weights and everything in the morning, and then meetings and academics for the student athletes in the afternoon. But sleep was, it wasn't happening. And you learn to kind of manage how to maximize it, how to get the most from it. We talked a little bit before we started recording, but for me, one thing that I had before Callie was born, but something that I absolutely need and use now, even if I get a short bout of sleep, even if it's just a nap, is the CPAP for me.
Okay.
It maximizes the time I have to help me recover as best I can.
So I know obviously you're a coach of fitness and performance. You're still an active person, still going out pursuing your own goals. Has that impacted how you work out right now for yourself at all?
Yeah, definitely. So from a weight training perspective, I went to a 3-day a week total body kind of workout. And then a 3-day, some form of cardiovascular workout on the days I don't weight train. And it's really a maintenance program right now. Something had to give, I guess, so to speak. And I didn't want to get hurt, obviously, because that first month, maybe 6 weeks, I could have seen that happening.
Sure.
So I had to decrease my volumes, my intensities, kind of got back to basics with a lot of what I was doing. It's nice. We have a garage gym with just a squat stand, a barbell. I got a power block. So I got 2 dumbbells. I got some kettlebells, some bands, bumpers. So not only do I have the option to do that here, but I also have the option to do it at home, which helped out. My wife, same thing. We moved it. So the quote I used with Shalana was, if it's a priority, then let's make it a priority. Right. So
Right.
we moved, we got a spin bike in the living room now. There's stuff all over the house. Shalana likes a really nice, clean house, with nice furniture and things like that. And, you throw that kind of out the window and you drop a spin bike right in the middle of the living room, and because you got to get it done, so
Yes.
you find the time. Yeah.
Spinning in the garage isn't going to be good for an ear to hear a crying baby.
Right. Yeah. So, she can kind of multitask. That's one thing, you got to learn to do is,
kind of habit stack.
Yeah. Like I'll be rolling out and holding Callie at the same time. It's one of those things where you got to kind of maximize everything and be able to multitask as best you can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of a fun thing to do. I mean, I kind of did that with my girls a little bit as it turned into an ab workout where I'd do something with them and they'd be sitting on my stomach or something. You just make it fun for them and just integrate it.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun, and I like to get, Shalana likes to get her out there, in the gym and in the weight room and get her moving. And, we've been listening. It's funny, you talked about sleep in the beginning. Like, I think I learned more about a baby and their sleep cycles. We listen to a bunch of webinars about that and how that works. And, you have a basis for it based on your own experience for dealing with, athletes and yourself. And now you learn a little bit about how a baby's sleep cycle works and how they change and what they need. And, you have some of your kind of pillars of, hey, cold, dark, quiet, and
right.
The amount of time you need and all those things. And you can kind of put those where you need them based on what, your child needs. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's been, it's fun to learn that stuff.
Yeah. And it's a great point on the kind of the adjusting and the adapting to your environment. You got the individual, you manage yourself, you have athletes, but they're adults most of the time. But then you have a baby who can't really follow instruction, right? And you have to adjust accordingly. Yeah,
it's been, Shalana, I'm not acting at all like I had much to do with that at all. She's driving that, and she's
coaching
great.
you.
Yeah, no, she is, and when, we have we keep a log, obviously, of, nap time, feeding amounts, diapers, what's in them, and what that does I think for us is it allows us to, I can jump in after having, been at work all day, and I know where she is in her cycle, in her process, instead of me having to ask, hey, where's she at? Does she need to eat? Does it, that just saves a little time too, where, I know where that sheet is, and I look at it first thing when I get in, and I say, okay, at 6:45, it's feeding time, or that's her window between 6:45 and 7:15.
Yeah.
And I know at 7:30, it's time for her to go down for bed. And so I can kind of jump in. And oftentimes when I get home, Shalana goes like this. And then she
Tap
runs
out.
out the door. Yeah, she runs out the door. So I can kind of, get
Yeah.
acclimated relatively easy to save time.
Well, that's wise. That's really wise to do that and document it. I guess kind of like any other thing on what doesn't get measured doesn't get, what's the phrase? What doesn't get measured? Well, you all get the point.
Doesn't get tracked.
Doesn't get done.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, even just on the mental emotional side, from a parenting standpoint, of having to constantly communicate like that, if you can minimize that, it can reduce some wear and tear on the parents a little.
Yeah, and initially, it was hard for me because I was just trying to figure out how to do everything, and hey, did you put it in the log? Did you put it in the log? Did you put it in the log? Yeah, I got it. I'll put it in the log. So it's kind of become part of our process, and I give my wife a hard time because she tracks everything, but she's right on the money. It's definitely super beneficial once it becomes a habit for you.
Yeah.
And your significant other just as much. I think and you can look back and you can, just like anything else, you track progress, right? Like, how many ounces did she have yesterday? Is she gaining weight the right way? When the doctor asks, you have an answer.
Right.
How's her sleep doing? How's her feeding doing? All those things they're easily quantifiable, and you can just look back, and
Yeah.
it's been nice.
What was one thing that surprised you in your discovery on the baby sleep cycle stuff?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we had her dialed in like 10 days ago. And that was like, I guess maybe 8 weeks,
Okay.
10 weeks, somewhere in there, where she was sleeping 7 hours a night, which was great. And it was like a week, 7.5. We got our hands up. We're the greatest, finally got our dreams. Yeah, we were high-fiving, and, it was great. And then she went right back to kind of 4 hours on a clip, 3 hours at a clip. And we were both kind of like shaking our heads, like, what's going on? And Shalana had, I can't remember the name of it. I wish I could. She purchased a really good webinar about kind of infant sleep and how to get them to sleep and provide them with adequate sleep and all that stuff while not, killing yourself. And it said that she's in a phase now where it changes. So I guess for me, I just kind of thought it was just going to be the same as as an adult. And, that's super naive, obviously, but it changes, I guess, like multiple times over the course of, the first year, and then the first 5 years and 10 years. So it's constantly evolving, just like anything else, which makes sense. But yeah, initially every couple hours was certainly the most telling for me, because I hadn't really been around a newborn.
Right. Yeah. I could certainly relate to that, thinking back a few years now to our kids, and the same thing. It was like, what happened? I'm just like, we were on a great rhythm.
Yeah.
I'm getting sleep finally. And then it just changes on you. I think that's an underlying theme of parenting in general, is right when you get into that rhythm, things kind of get turned around somewhere.
Yeah. It's funny, I kind of walk into the coach's locker room in the morning, and some of the football coaches look at me and go, "Oh yeah, rough one, huh?" And I just kind of like, stumbling in. Our running back coach, Sean Aguano, he says, "Hey man," he goes, "you're not going to really sleep for another 18 years. So just get ready for that." And that's the expectation. And I tell you what, I do look forward to is as bad as it is, away trips, because I get one good night of sleep. Normally it's followed by one terrible night of sleep because we travel.
Yeah.
But that Friday night sleep is it's pretty epic. And my wife, Shalana's, she's funny because she's like, all my friends, their husbands have got them spa weekends and stuff like that where they get sleep. And, so I owe her one of those,
Yeah.
sometime in December when the season's over, or January. So she can get a good night's sleep. But,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
one thing too, like when we first got in the groove, we would try to manage the schedule in like larger blocks of time. So if we knew I was going to get up early, I would take that feeding that was closest to that time, and maybe she would take a feeding at a different time,
Yep.
so that I could get 4 or 5 hours straight, and she could get 4 or 5 hours straight versus kind of every hour getting up,
Yeah.
both of us getting up. So there was a little bit of that too, where we just had to kind of manage that, which I think was really beneficial for us after we kind of got in the groove with that too.
Yeah. So on the adult side of things, for you and your wife, how are you guys reclaiming some of that time, or are you able to throughout the day? And I'll caveat that I had a conversation with Dr. Chris Winter, and he was talking about our sleep as more of a holistic than a consecutive.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious to see how you've been able to kind of reclaim some of that time.
Yeah, I mean, it's been certainly a challenge. My wife is not she sleeps at night. She does not do well napping.
Mhm.
Just kind of her nature. She's a high energy individual. So is our daughter so far. So she's ready to party at all times too.
Nice.
Um, which I think is somebody getting some payback on Shalana for something over the course of her life. But it's been hard. Yeah. So when I get home, it's, I try to take Callie for as much as time as I can so Shalana can get away and get what she needs done, and
Yeah.
and vice versa. When I'm at work, Shalana's got to kind of be the sole manager of Callie and what she needs. The nice thing is, her mom has been out. All of our family lives in Massachusetts, which
Okay.
is, obviously that's a difficult flight. It's,
Yeah.
plus we got COVID still lingering. There's a lot of different, variables to that. But my parents have been out. Shalana's had a friend from North Carolina come out. She's had her sister come out. So we've had a lot of visitors,
Hmm.
which has been good, I think, for everybody, because it's just another set of hands.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
we certainly haven't, there's been discussion of Shalana kind of going back to work, maybe first of the year, which is a whole nother
Bag of tricks.
challenge,
Yeah.
certainly, with childcare and, what type you want to do. But that's another kind of hurdle we got to navigate here pretty soon.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think communication is the most important thing, because you got such a short trigger, right? Because there's hormones that are there for a while. It's,
Yeah.
as a husband, you got to understand that, your wife's not going to respond to things maybe the way she did before.
100%.
And
Yeah.
you gotta know that, and you gotta understand that, she might be a little crazy. She might respond to things a little differently than she did before, and that's okay. And that's part of the process. So certainly for me, learning to kind of the way I said things and the way I asked things and how I talk to her is super important.
Yeah.
To
The thing isn't the thing all the time.
No, yeah, I like that statement. You're right. That's a great way to put it. There's always something else that's kind of in there that you might not have any idea about,
Yeah.
and um the challenge of breastfeeding, the challenge of being all of a sudden thrust into this position where this thing's life depends on you. It's hard. It's
It's
been hard.
weighty. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially and those are things that you and I, as the fathers and husbands, there is no empathy, not empathy. There's no connection point. Like they're just things we
Right.
can never experience.
Right.
So yeah, I can definitely relate to what you're referring to, going through some of the things we went through, and we're unfortunately all of our pregnancies for our girls were C-sections, and a couple of them were emergencies. So that extra, I'll say, trauma and experience leads to other things that you have to adapt to.
Right.
Which I think is what you're kind of speaking to, is that communication and adaptation, to be able to adapt and adjust, and not take always everything at face value, because there's layers to what's happening.
Right.
So let me ask you this. You kind of touched on it, but how have you, or put you on the spot, but do you see any correlation as a performance coach in understanding a new way of sleep impacting your life, and relating that as a coach, and seeing any new ways to view fitness performance and the importance of recovery in that process?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all about prioritization, and, in reality, the things that, childbirth has kind of put me through. For me personally, dealing with college athletes, there's a huge learning curve there for me, because now I might be sleep deprived just like them. They were out all night, they were studying all night or whatever. And some of the different things that, I had to figure out that helped me could in turn help them, or
Right.
I think anybody in that regard, somebody that's a, hard charger in their profession, and, they work in Silicon Valley and they're not sleeping, or it's whatever. There's a
Yeah.
lot of sort of low hanging fruit that you can grab and try to maximize. Certainly your sleep and your recovery.
Sure.
That's important. It's for me, like one of the biggest things was we obviously my wife's a dietitian, and she's a CSCS certified, strength coach.
Okay.
She's been doing.
So she's in the environment too.
Yeah, she's been doing nutrition and performance for a long time. And so have I. So for us, like, those things are really important, and we always meal prepped, and we always did all these different, we love to cook. But we didn't have time to cook anymore.
Yeah.
There was no time to cook. So we actually, we were fortunate enough to be able to get a meal prep company. So 3 minutes in the microwave and you got yourself something that's worth it.
Yeah.
And initially that was even hard to manage that. We'd hard boil, 2 dozen eggs in the Instapot, and have them ready to go, because you never knew when you needed them. And
Yeah.
I think just something is better than nothing. And, trying to hang on to everything you can, and being able to prioritize what you feel like gets the most bang for your buck in a given instance, that'll help you hang on and help you recover,
Yeah.
after the fact too. Shalana, she did the childbirth all natural, which, was one of the most insanely amazing things I've ever witnessed in my life. I actually caught Callie.
Did you really? That's awesome.
And we did, we had a midwife, which she was awesome, Angela. And, Shalana was standing up when she gave birth, in the bathroom, hanging on to the handicap rail next to the toilet. I mean, so the research that Shalana put in really prepared her for that. You know, she understood that you don't have to be laying on your back necessarily. And we watched webinars on that. And, you know, we tried to figure out what the best position for her and what her, you know, hips and her anatomy.
Yeah.
She went to a pelvic floor specialist locally in Arizona.
That's
Who actually
great.
has the same last name as us, which was strange, but she deals with not only pregnant women who are planning to have, you know, natural birth, but also postpartum, you know,
Yeah.
after the birth and the recovery process for that. So Shalana actually sees her, you know, every few weeks to get an evaluation. She's a doctor of physical therapy in Scottsdale, and
Okay.
she works a lot with it. And so all those different things I think are super important for
Absolutely.
the recovery process for Shalana. You know, physically, all I had to worry about was not getting enough sleep and not eating and that sort of thing. That's the easy part.
Right.
You know, I didn't have a, you know, 6-pound human come out of my body, you know, and that's but all those little things I think are, I don't know as though the everyday person would, number one, think about that being important, and number two, have access to it.
Yeah.
I think it's supremely important. You know, one of the things that my wife was really concerned about was the epidural and the process of laying on your back and pushing.
Yeah.
And the term push, right? Like it's supposed to kind of occur naturally. So we went back and forth on all that stuff. But doing your homework beforehand to prepare yourself, Shalana treated it like a powerlifting meet. That's what she treated the pregnancy like. She had her preparation from a training perspective. She had her nutrition lined up. I had electrolytes the whole time. Like we were
Dialed in.
It was like a powerlifting meet. And
well, pushing a 6-pound baby out, like you said, that's
yeah. And so she's come out of it in really good shape. You know, and you look back at kind of some ancestral things that people did, like nobody laid on their back really giving birth. It was always standing. It was always moving. It was always in positions where you had gravity or pressure, you know, working with you versus working against you. So, you know, she did all that homework, and I was lucky enough to kind of be part of it. But again, our basis and our background in performance and anatomy and understanding the Valsalva maneuver and understanding all these different things helped us, I think, along the way, you know?
Yeah, it sounds like it has. And you know, the pelvic floor is something that I only recently learned about. I've been fortunate to have a couple of interviews on that topic. And the important understanding the impact that it has on women's bodies physically, and then how to recover from that is extremely important. But that's great. You've been able to apply that and learn that. And you know, like you said, I think not enough people realize that. We just kind of follow along whatever we're informed of, and you come from trusted sources, but the kind of the trust but verify, you know, like you said, do your own research and figure out what you're comfortable with, because it's not always a one size fits all, and there's multiple paths that are valid. Like you said, you even used a midwife. A lot of people don't have a midwife. So, you know, there's various options out there.
Yeah, we found that not only to be monetarily a better option, but just flexibility wise, we had a better option. I mean, she was with us. We met with her multiple times during the pregnancy. We got to know her beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she would have driven with us to the hospital. We labored at home for as long as we could. right up until Shalana's water broke. And then we kind of headed to the hospital. We were in constant communication with her. She was our kind of intermediary between, the doctor and the midwife. And so we, excuse me, the doula that, so we had a doula as well,
Okay.
and a midwife. And so that process was super beneficial. It's all, I was going to say something about the pelvic floor, but I can't remember what I was going to say.
We got to circle back.
Yeah, I'll think of it for sure. But, oh, I know what it is. So I think a lot of folks that are going through pregnancy, I'll say this, I think it's easy for the healthcare system to say, okay, epidural, here you go, right? Like, this is just what we do.
Right.
And I think there's something that, and Shalana mentioned this, there's a real connection to being able to have that child and endure that experience for a woman. Now, obviously, listen, there's a lot of things that can happen, and
sure,
we were considering, the C-section at one point, right? So it's everyone's situation's different, but
sure.
Understanding the flexibility that you have options, I think is really empowering.
Yeah.
For folks. And, it doesn't have to be just cookie cutter. This is the next thing,
Well, I think that empowerment piece is a key ingredient because to me, it removes the absolutes, like it's either or, where it's not, because I think a lot of times, whether it's this or other things, we go down this path that we're right or wrong, where it's more like a spectrum of good, better, best based on the circumstance. And then somewhere along the way, people may the negative self-talk or what have you, that I didn't do it right. Well, not necessarily. Like, conditions change, circumstances changed, and there's other viable options.
Right. We had a 3-ring binder with
nice.
our birth plan. I mean, you would have got a kick out of this guy. It's like, I'll have to show it to you someday. I'll send you a picture. I mean, we had tabs of, hey, C-section, here's what we want. Hey, epidural, here's what we want. And the nurses and the midwife and the doctors thought we were insane, but it was all for Shalana to feel comfortable with whatever happened.
Right.
And again, that's doing your legwork on the front end, to be able to have a sudden change and to be okay with it because you had a contingency plan and you walk through it, right? Mentally, you walk through it beforehand. That was really calming for her.
Yeah.
And for me, because shoot, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and so it's funny. It's no different than, some of the different things I teach our football team, right? Like,
right.
On any given Saturday, anything can happen.
Right.
And if you have a contingency plan and you've walked through it mentally and physically, you've put the work in during the week at practice and you're prepared, you can adapt and change in the moment. And it's the same lesson, certainly in this instance.
Yeah. Even if it's something you weren't prepared for, but at least, like you said, anything can happen. But if you mentally prepare, anything can happen. There's no such thing as a surprise. And then you've got all the mental and physical, preparation of a whole bunch of different machinations that whatever comes, you're ready for
it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a huge lesson. So where do you go from here with, or I think I asked that question already. I was going to ask about working with the players, but what's a key takeaway? What's like the number one thing that you've walked away from the last 3-6 months in this transformation from this life event that you can't unwind. What's a key takeaway for you?
Well, number one, it's an amazing thing. We were super blessed to be able to have it happen to us. I'm a little bit older than most that, were able to have a child.
Okay.
My wife, she's 38 or 39. I'm going to be 40 in June. So, that situation for us, certainly was it's been a blessing. I think that I can't imagine being 22 and going through what we went through, but thinking about being 22 and knowing that even if it did happen then, everything would have been okay.
Yeah.
Allows me to feel really good about, being 40 and having everything be okay, because I feel like I had my stuff together a little bit more than I did when I was 22. But again, like I said, I think just planning and prioritizing, it's the biggest thing, and spending time. I used to be the guy that, would wonder why certain people would try to leave work, early.
Yeah.
And wonder why they weren't invested in their job, and wonder why, that just happened. And now I completely understand that situation, because, there's been days where, it's 2:30 after having got there at, 4 a.m. and I kind of look at my watch and I look at my staff and I'm like, hey, you guys got it. I'm out of here, and I think that's really cool, because in reality, Callie and Shalana are the most important, things in my life. And, obviously my parents and my sisters and my family are
Sure.
super important, but, yeah, they're the most important, and their well-being is the most important. So, that's the biggest lesson. You mentioned empathy,
Yep.
almost up by accident, but to me, I was a person that lacked empathy, I think, in my life up until Callie's birth,
Yeah.
and that really changed, sort of my perspective on things. I'm not saying I'm a sap by any means, but it's definitely changed the way I look at decisions that are made, and my time and my wife's time, and what's important.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I appreciate you saying that, because that recalibration of priorities and what's most important, and why you do what you do. And so let me ask you this then, how are you adapting your expectations of excellence, right? Because you've achieved it personally, you're at a university, and excellence, defining it accurately, to me, is how you're kind of coming across right now. What you just said is the definition of excellence sometimes can be, maybe too much. I want to say too much, maybe that's the right term, but I think you're catching my point on overdoing something to a negative degree.
Yeah, it's my nature. It's kind of how I guess I was raised a little bit. There's no such thing as good enough, right? And unfortunately, that was my mindset for a really long time. My wife is very similar. She chases the unicorn of perfection in her life, and so I think we've both learned that, I know that it's unattainable. I still think that chasing it is a good idea,
Hmm.
but you have to have balance.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that it's unattainable. And that's the hard thing for people that are perfectionist type A people, is you have to know you're never going to get it. So chasing it's okay, but just understand you're never going to attain it. So you just you gotta come to a common ground
Yeah.
in that drive that pushes you forward.
You think
But
it's
I also,
maybe like around I want to say load management, but I wrote pace of the chase.
mm,
So like calibrating the pace of getting there. So if you're used to getting 5 in a day, maybe 2 is still success, if that makes sense.
yeah, certainly. I think that's a great way to put it. Like, a lot of the things we talked about were regressions from perfect,
Right.
right? So how do you manage your sleep now? Because it's not perfect. How do you manage your nutrition? Because it's not perfect. Your training, because it's not perfect. How do you manage your career? Because you now have this huge chunk of time that's been removed,
Hmm.
but constantly moving forward, even if it's a small step, is still the mentality of Shalana, of myself. Um, we'd love
Progression.
to we'd love to instill that in Callie as well, right?
Yeah.
It's part of who we are, but being able to, yeah, kind of govern the speed at which forward is progress, but how fast, that's certainly, I like the way you put that. I think that's definitely hackable. Yeah, I like it.
Cool. Well, Joe, coming up on time, really appreciate your insights and seeing that life transition.
Yeah, man.
Happy for you and your bride and your little girl. Welcome to girl dadhood. Uh, and how can, what's next for you?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I appreciate it, Scott. And next for me is as we got to go beat Arizona, and then we got to get ready for a bowl game, and then we got to get ready to start the whole cycle over again. The second week in January with off-season training with a whole new team,
Oh, wow.
and start the countdown clock over again for the next season, the next year.
Okay.
Um, it's the nice thing about college athletics is it's year to year, it's cyclical, and you can, there's a start point and an end point, and you get a little time to kind of sort of look back at what worked and what didn't, what you can change, what you can't change. Certainly you do that in the moment on the way, but you can evaluate yourself, your staff,
Yeah.
the situation, and then, move forward with a plan and again, plans are made to be broken. So it's definitely something that having a plan is better than not having a plan, but
True.
just understand that, it's going to change
Yep.
for sure. So
Absolutely.
that's next.
Well, as you may recall, last 3 questions. What are you reading right now?
So I'm reading a great book, 2 books, actually. Actually, I'm reading more than that, but I have, I think, 4 on my nightstand.
Okay.
But the one I'm currently reading is Speak Like Churchill, Stand Like Lincoln,
Okay.
which is a fantastic book about sort of some pillars to not only public speaking and motivation, but your presentation in front of large crowds or anyone.
Yeah.
And it references a lot of famous, obviously Lincoln and Churchill got,
Sure.
historical figures that
Communicators.
did things a certain way for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's an easy read. And then I'm reading a book called Move. It's written by a PhD actually at Arizona State, and it's all about human movement and biomechanics. It's fantastic. It just came out.
Oh,
It's on
cool.
Amazon.
Okay.
And then the last one was that I just finished was essentially, it was like the first I think it was like 60 weeks of being a dad. And it literally every chapter was a week, sort of what to expect from, your wife physiologically, what to expect mentally, what you can do to help, where kind of things are.
Yeah.
So that was a really, really beneficial book for me, and it's an easy read too.
Awesome. That sounds like a good one. What are you listening to, be it music or podcast?
Music's the gamut, it's everything. I got into Spotify a little bit recently just because I was kind of on there for a few different Joe Rogan podcasts, and
Yep.
I kind of started messing around with it. So anything on there, some of those different playlists are great. I still do listen to a little Joe Rogan, Mark Bell, some of the similar ones as before.
Yeah.
Ben Greenfield, some of the really far out there ones that he has are, more for entertainment purposes as opposed to helping me personally. But I do certainly appreciate his commitment to a lot of the different things he does. That's pretty much it. I don't have a lot of time for podcasts at the moment, as we just discussed.
Yeah.
So it's really just in the car. I got a 16-minute drive to and from home to work and work to home. So
that's a nice commute.
I think that's a good little duration. And oftentimes I don't listen to anything.
Yeah.
I listen to silence, and I do my breath work in the car because that's something that really helps me calm down after a stressful day at work, before I kind of enter the household, where if I bring in that sort of energy, it's not good. So that's something that I've been doing in the car. There's been a few times with old 478 that I got a little lightheaded on the highway, but that's probably not the best thing. But it was worth it because it's important.
Yeah. Don't want to do super ventilating during that time.
No, I got to pick and choose my my program from old Wim Hof and figure out which one's the best.
Yeah.
So I don't pass out, but it's worth it.
Awesome. And then what is your go-to rest or recovery method? Maybe you just mentioned it.
Yeah, right now it's breath work because I don't really have time for sauna. I sent you that video. That was before Callie was born. That's still in our guest room and it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
But I don't have 20 minutes to get in there really when I'm home, right? Especially not right now.
Sure.
Being that I'm not home a lot. I do on occasion a cold plunge, and I do take a cold shower in the morning. I think that's really beneficial.
Yeah.
But again, prioritizing the low hanging fruit that's easy that you can do while you're doing other things, like we talked about with the multitasking. So breath work and driving, although not maybe the safest thing, it definitely has been beneficial to me. And I think that's probably the most important thing, that if I go a day without, I know I didn't do it.
You can feel it.
Yeah, I can definitely feel it. And, my stress level, it'll increase.
Yeah.
So finding time to do that, whether it's on a bus ride to the airport with the team or, in my hotel room or, in my car, once a day, twice a day. It's super important.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, again, appreciate your time and insights. Best of luck on the rest of the season. And of course, with you and your wife on parenthood. So
no, I appreciate it, Scott. Thank you, man.